Oh my God, it's already been a week, and this is the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and today we are here with the honored guest, Andy Peliquin. That's right, you've never seen him before, but man, you are going to be amazed. He's like 7 feet tall, and he's from Africa. Give it up for the giraffe man.
What the hell kind of intro is that, Stevie? Like,
completely improv.
So weird.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show, Andy. It's nice to have you on here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
This guy plays along like a boss. Well done, AJ.
This is a dangerous podcast for everyone listening. When someone plays along, it just gets worse. We build up. We usually keep it toned down for like people who don't play along, but he's playing along. This is age restricted. Please do not bring your kids to watch this show. That was a perfect sound effect too, by the way.
Why was that the perfect sound effect?
Because it's like a beer, except it's a Sprite Zero, the whitest drink on earth.
I don't think I've ever seen some pretty mean cocktails.
It does.
Do they? I've never seen anyone actually physically drink a Sprite Zero in real life before.
Oh my God, dude. Try them. It tastes just like Diet Sprite. It doesn't taste like a real Sprite. But yeah, something with cranberry always goes good with a Diet Sprite.
Or you like Sprite Zero, you use it instead of club soda, so there's a little bit of sweetness to it. Like if you're making a white wine sangria, I love using Sprite Zero for that. Or there's a few cocktails that I created, and Sprite Zero's got just enough sweetness to be enjoyable, but not like overly, assaulting your taste buds kind of sweet.
I'm not really a cocktail guy. I'm more of a beer guy, so I can't really contribute to this conversation. Sorry.
Well, I would definitely like to say that I'm a beer guy. I'm a very, very manly beer guy who only occasionally drinks cocktails all the time because they're delicious.
I'm sure they are.
It's just,
I got to an age where I really couldn't drink cocktails very often, not because they're not delicious, because they are, but because I get hungover so horribly from them.
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot even bother with it. I was like, yeah, the beer is gonna make me a little bit hungover, but like, it's worth it. Because I don't know, it just tastes so good.
How much?
That looks like an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, Andy. Damn, alcoholic over here.
Nailed it. Good job.
IPA is the only thing I drink. The only beer I drink.
It's funny. That's the only beer I drink, and I thought it was an IPA, but I wasn't brave enough to say anything. It's up to you to believe whether I'm lying or not. But yeah, IPA is by far my favorite. And once you go IPA, I feel like it's really hard to go back.
It is,
especially if you like actually drink an IPA and you want to go to something lighter. Like, good luck.
I used to live in Los Angeles, and back then that was fresh out of college. And back when I lived there, it was like Blue Moon. That was my stuff. That was what I drank because it was like, oh yeah, it's high class. It's a step up from Natty Ice, so we'll go with that. And then once I started drinking, and then I moved to Colorado for a while, and that's like the land of plentiful over there when it comes to beer. Started getting into IPAs because of my then fiance and now wife, and it's been hard going back. Like every now and then when I'm oppressed, I have to go get Blue Moon, and it's just awful. And I realized, this was never a good beverage, but it's better than Miller, so I guess I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, it's blood orange. I was reading the chat. Blue Moon was one of my favorites as well, but I just can't go back to it. Like I've become very pretentious with my beers. I have to have something craft, and Texas is big on craft beer. But with craft comes high alcohol percentages, I feel.
You make it sound like it's a negative thing. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Yeah.
It wasn't a negative thing until I got hangovers, and some people just don't get them. But AJ, it's refreshing to hear you talk about it.
No, seriously, without fail, I'll have 2 of these. I'll be hungover tomorrow.
Exactly.
I don't go above 2 beers. Always hungover.
That's the beauty of IPA. It's one and done. So you have one, you hit it hard, drink it while it's still cold. You kind of float in the nice, happy, buzz for until your body digests, and then either you're done drinking or another hour and a half goes by and you have another one to sort of keep it at that level. And it's like the perfect drink for that.
I feel you. Yeah, I have to drink a lot of water too, which makes me healthier, so I'll go with that.
It's a win-win, really.
Have you guys tried? This is the alcohol podcast, by the way. This is AA Anonymous Fiends podcast. But we will get into some. You know what? This is AJ Cerna. He is a fantasy lit RPG author who is somewhat sci-fi. I think anytime you're lit RPG.
That's the thing, is anytime you're lit RPG, I think technically you can argue that you're steampunk and sci-fi, but like they're not, at least our stories. I'm sure there are plenty out there that do play up the sci-fi elements. Ours is more fantasy based, and even the stuff that is like sci-fi, which I guess you could argue my other series, Gin Tabor, technically is. It's not like Star Trek or anything, or it's not like a military sci-fi or anything that hardcore sci-fi people would actually like to read.
Yeah, it's the sci-fi elements are what drive the game itself, right? And the game serves as the framework for the world, the fantasy world. So I honestly don't know of many or any sci-fi lit RPGs. Like every lit RPG that I know to some extent is more fantasy, more magical oriented.
I'm outing myself here because I can't think of very many either. Or any either that I've read. I haven't read any personally that are sci-fi based.
Honestly, the only thing I can think of is the Sword Art Online, the gun game, right?
I love that part.
That's literally the only thing that I can think of that has a sci-fi, well, that's even dystopian, but close enough, sort of a sci-fi lit RPG. Everything else is to a certain extent. I mean, I think there's superhero lit RPG, which is slightly different in the sense that it's, superpowers, and they don't really need to bother with the science of it all, because the superpowers are granted just like magical abilities or abilities in a lit RPG game. So it tends to just be those kind of things. So what readers
I think I gravitate towards the fantasy stuff more. So I guess, I'm not the right person to ask about that, ironically enough.
So I'm looking at your Amazon page. I'm guessing this is these are all the books you've written?
Yes, those are the books I've written.
It's crazy to me that these are your first books, but they're with someone else. Are you writing under someone, or are they actually like you do a chapter, they do a chapter? Because that would seem pretty hard for a.
So it does have its challenges. I'm kind of like, so I write with Derek Allen Sidaway. He's another author. We trade off duties. It depends on the project, but it's not chapter by chapter. We don't flip off that way because I don't think that really is conducive to sort of a cohesive style. What we do is we brainstorm the overall, I guess the base story that we're going to go with. Then it's either me or him. We decide to take, okay, we're going to do the outline, the base outline, which is, 3 to 5 pages. And then one of us looks it over, we go through changes, and then that person who did the outline does a deeper outline, which they're usually really long. Like the ones I've done for the Gin Tamer series are like 50 to 60 some odd pages. And then the one for God Mode, which was going to be 1 book, but is now 2, that was like over 100-page outline. And since we basically were able to, we cut it in half in order to make it, not ridiculously big, but also because there was a natural place where it's like, well, this is kind of one part of the story, and then this could be like the other its own. It's a continuation, but it's like they could be appreciated as their kind of own standalone thing.
Interesting.
And then the person goes in and drafts the entire novel, and then the person who did the outline goes in and then basically does a couple of passes to make sure that, it's consistent, it makes sense, blah, blah, blah. Then the person who drafted does one more pass, and then we give it to an editor.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just crazy to me that it's a first time thing for you to just jump right into that. Did you have to show, because Derek's been doing this for a while, right? Since like,
I think we've technically we've been doing it around the same time. I used to write under another name. Which is my actual name. My name is actually Joseph Medina, and I wrote under the name for a sort of sci-fi fantasy Western, and I unpublished it since. So if you're looking it up, you're not going to find it. Because I actually do want to revisit it one day and give it more of a fantasy skin and more of a fantasy sort of backbone down the line, and I think I do a much better job with it now. But I did that back, I think 2015 or so, and I think he was doing stuff around then as well. And I don't know how we even got in touch with each other. I think he reached out because he's the outgoing one of the two of us, and we actually worked on another novel, which was a Donald Trump parody novel. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but yeah, that happened several years back. That was kind of our first collaboration, and it was an epic failure. It did not do well at all. We really didn't know how to market it, and it was. I thought it was a fun story, but it was like it just didn't go anywhere. But we did work well together, and then later on, he introduced me to the world of lit RPG, asked if I wanted to do a story with him. Then we hopped on board to Djinn Tamer, which is sort of a monster battle inspired type story like Pokemon or something like that.
I was going to say your book 2 looks a lot like Pokemon.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely caught my eye. And that was my next question actually was, my question for characters, when I say characters, the little tunes that you use to fight, how do you describe them? Do you use like animals from Earth in order to describe them? Because I've had issues with that, with animals that I just want to just something insane. But I feel like you have to, when showing it to a reader, you have to use things that they know.
That was a very contentious point among me and Derek, because he very much wanted to use real life animals as a descriptor. I did not, because in my mind, I didn't like the idea of the narrator reaching out from this world into our world and pulling references.
Yeah.
That kind of felt weird. But after a lot of arguing, a lot of yelling, a lot of back and forth, I acquiesced a bit. I was like, okay, one time we get to do it for each Djinn. We get to half mention something that is remotely close to our animal as sort of a way to help align expectations of what this animal looks like, and then never again if we can. And then we kind of describe it from there, just kind of use it as a base. That was kind of our compromise. So that's kind of what we did. And also we use the names a lot. You know, if you know anything about Pokemon, the way they're named, they're kind of hints as to what they are. We kind of use the same thing. So between using that animal thing, normal descriptions, and all of those things together, it's like hopefully they get a basic idea of what the Djinn looks like.
Did you read any lit RPG before you started?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because he introduced it to me and I was like, oh, check this out. And I wouldn't say I'm a huge gamer. I'd say I'm like I'm very much like more than casual, but I'm not hardcore. Like I'm a guy who puts in, I don't know, an hour or two every week or two.
Yeah.
But I usually like to complete big epic JRPGs. You know, like Final Fantasy or Xenoblade Chronicles or something like that. That's sort of my cup of tea. And I forgot the question. What was the question?
No. You answered it for sure. I tried writing my own lit RPG. It made its money back, but I didn't want to do it again because of all the stat taking. No, it's the Excel spreadsheets. I was like, done.
It's rough. It's like you know, you're torn between the two ideas of, it's like, is it necessary? Like the stats, like you want to make sure that they're necessary on some level, because if they're not contributing to the story, they just become a hassle to keep track of, and it becomes kind of unfun. Admittedly, our stuff is relatively light. I think God Mode, which is our upcoming book that's hitting in a couple of weeks, is relatively light, or excuse me, it's more crunchy, as they call it, than Djinn Tamer. But I still don't think it's super heavy. I might be wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to see the forest for the trees on that one at this point. I don't think it's complex, but we tend to focus mostly on, like, yes, the lit RPG elements are integral to the story. Yes, they're there, but they're not like the main focus. We want the main focus to be like on the story and the character and stuff. Because I come from a screenwriting background. I graduated from film school and stuff, and you know, was in Hollywood for a bit. So like that's where my focus is, and that's kind of where I bring things in. So it was very much there were growing pains in learning the process of lit RPG. You kind of almost have to unlearn what you've learned about storytelling, and it's both good and bad, because you have to learn to cater to your audience a lot more, because they are very vocal about what they want in the story. For me, I'm like, let me get 30% into my story, and then, you know, get into the second act of it. Maybe at the end of the first act, we'll get into lit RPG elements, and then we go from there. They're like, no, chapter 2, give me lit RPG elements, or I'm dropping your book. Yeah. And I'm just like, that doesn't feel right. But okay, so you have to figure out a way to make it work story-wise as well. So it's like, it's fighting your instincts, but also kind of merging them and cooperating them. And
at least you evolved with that.
Yeah.
I personally, when I first started just writing in general, I hated taking critique. I hated making any changes that I thought were against what I wanted to do. Luckily, I found Andy, who was like a mentor to me. And now it's been a while since we've talked craft a little bit, but with everything going on, it's good. That's why you're still here. You were able to evolve, and you're able to and plus, from what I've learned from, I cannot remember their names. They're not really in the whole indie publishing game anymore, but that you were able to go from scripts to writing. That's hard, because I know from writing to scripts, it's completely different. It's different from what I hear. It's different because there's no setting unless it's in that little abstract at the top.
I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, yes, the way you present it is different, but at its core, it's. I mean, if you're doing traditional stories, if you're doing traditional, here's a character, they want to do this, they fight to that, they try to do that thing, and then at the end they do it or they don't. If you're doing a basic 3-act structure, they're kind of similar. Yes, you have to learn to describe things and all that, and present it in a way that's optimal for the medium. But I think if you come in with a solid understanding of story, I think you're more prepared than a lot of people give it credit for on both directions.
Yeah, definitely. I have one question before Andy takes over, and one statement before Andy takes over. And we still have to get into something cool that's happened to us previously. I don't know if you've watched any of our shows before, but the first thing I want to say is, if you are, considering writing a book, you've been reading a lot and you want to start writing, I highly suggest either the 3-act story. If you're not because to me, I didn't study any craft before I started writing, and my first book did pretty well. But if you're kind of I don't know what to do, try the 3-act storyline. If you're not a fan of that, try the writer from Rick and Morty. He has a very cool YouTube series on, I believe it's not called the 6 or 9-act series, or
Story Circle.
Story Circle. That's right. He took someone else's idea and made it his own. My most successful book to this date, which is I Am Mech, was based off that. So I really like it. It works for me. I don't follow it to a circle. Get it? I don't follow it to a T. I don't follow it to a circle. I know. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that.
But my question that I was talking about is your orc on your book God Mode, which I highly suggest go check out. It looks super dope. Is that a World of Warcraft orc? Because it really reminds me of World of Warcraft, because that looks exactly the same.
The world itself is super inspired. I didn't draw it. We gave it to an artist and gave them an idea of what we're looking for. It is illustrated.
Okay.
Yeah, our publishers hired an illustrator, gave us hey, what do you want on the cover? So we gave them an idea of what we were looking for in terms of the cover, and then they had an amazing artist just draw that up. So it is not the one from World of Warcraft, but I'm sure it's heavily inspired by. I think in the description we said an orc or something inspired by World of Warcraft. So it's they pretty much nailed that.
They did an amazing job. It looks like a movie poster.
Thank you. Our publishers would be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, Aethon, right?
Aethon Books.
Awesome. Yeah, they always come out with some really cool covers. Just check out Andy's books on Amazon if you're interested to see some really cool covers. But so what is something, AJ, that you haven't seen the show before, right?
I have.
Okay, I was about to call you a piece of shit, but now I'm just going to say you're awesome. I was in my mind, I was ready to call you a name.
Well, this is even worse because yes, I've seen it, but I still completely forgot to come to the table with something cool to talk about.
It's still more forgivable than 2 people who do it all the time. Andy, do you have any good news?
Well, so it's small good news, but it's good for me. Today I did an almost a 6-kilometer hike. You can see it.
Damn.
We can see the whole hike?
You can see that mountain there. That's what I climbed today.
You have a mountain view? What the?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the mountains right behind sort of our area. I did that today, and I finished the rough draft of Cerberus Book 7.
Nice.
And I'm starting on the first draft of it tomorrow. So it's going to probably end up being between 120 and 130,000 words. because things just end up getting longer no matter what I try to do to keep them short.
Yeah.
And I know something else cool happened, but I can't remember. So we'll just go with that.
That's a good one.
That is really good news. You said 5 kilometers? What did you say?
Yeah, 5.6.
Okay, what is that in American?
It's like maybe like 3.5, 4, 3.5 or 4.
That's awesome. Yeah.
3 and a bit, I think.
Did it take you like 2 hours?
It was about an hour and say 5 or 10 minutes going up the hill, and then it was 40 minutes coming down. So a little bit, like I think it was like an hour 45 or something to do that, because the uphill was really steep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I cannot believe you have a freaking mountain view. I'm looking at a parking lot over here. Jesus, I need to move to Canada.
Yep.
I hear it's nice. I've never been. Actually, I've been there once, but I was little, so it doesn't count.
I love Canada. I really enjoyed it. It's like America, but I mean, America's got pretty places, but I also went to Niagara Falls, which is like, I guess not a real taste of Canada. But my good news for the week is I have broken dirt. What is it? What did it say, Andy? Broken ground. Broken ground. I broken dirt on book 3, and I was surprised. This is the easiest book that I've started writing in this series. So I feel like I'm finally getting my little sci-fi boots on, and I'm getting a little bit more brave with the wording and coming up with a few sciencey things. And I even did research. Wow, I did research on the respiratory system, which was very interesting. And then I go down rabbit holes, and I'm like, yeah, I can perform surgery on lungs now, but I just still don't know how to write my story.
Can you really, though? Can you really?
How many Jack Daniels have I had?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, see, you weren't expecting that.
I wasn't expecting that, no.
Well, I don't think the patient would either. But yeah, that's my good news. I'm super busy. I would say that's also good news. It's better than being stagnant. Yeah. But I would also say the good news is today I'm going to be able to read a lit RPG, which I'm excited for. AJ?
I'm trying to think I don't know if there are very many lit RPGs in the section that we're going to be reading today.
Is
lit RPG elements.
Is lit RPG still booming right now?
It is definitely on the down, but it's kind of impossible to predict whether or not, like, when's it going to bottom out? Like, it's not like bad. It's still pretty lively, but like, I think it hit its peak like a while ago.
Yeah, I wish it would have kind of gotten its own. I mean, I believe Amazon added a few subgenres that are kind of similar.
Yeah, I wish they did too. That would be helpful, because there's nothing weirder than like seeing one of those, like there's tons of different subgenres in it, and then seeing them all classified under steampunk.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
I wish, or cyberpunk or whatever. Not steampunk, cyberpunk. And yeah, it's just, or game or adaptations or guide or something, or game guides. And it's just like, I wish there was one that you could just throw it under, because it's big enough. It should. But those are the breaks, I guess.
Do you work as a screenwriter right now, or are you in Colorado?
No. Right now, I'm not in Colorado. I will be moving back soon. Wow. That's actually a cool thing. We're in the process of buying a house. We're in contract. So yay, fingers crossed. We'll see what happens there.
Very nice.
I work for a movie website. I'm editor-in-chief of a movie website, and I write about movies for a while. I have had a weird career.
That is weird.
Yeah, I write about that. And then like before that, like I was writing anime dubs and stuff, and like working in the anime dubbing industry for a bit. And it's been all over the place.
For that though, you would have to know a second language, right?
No, you don't.
You don't. Okay.
Because you work with the translation, and then you basically take the translation and you adapt it to lip flaps on screen, and it's hair-pullingly difficult. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what happened.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I just thought it was like, I hope it works. Here's the translation. Nope. This is what they say. Wow. Yeah. But as someone who actually studies Japanese, I never knew how that was possible, because just even saying, it's nice to meet you, there's no English translation that I've heard of. It's just like, look favorably upon me. And that's not even really the full translation of
that is such a Japanese way of saying that. Look favorably upon me.
Look favorably upon me. But all my teachers have said, yeah, that's the closest way we would put it. And I'm like,
and
what does it mean?
What is? How do you say that in Japanese? Is it hajime mashite? Is that what that means?
Hajime mashite, dozo yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu. Yeah.
So I think it's the dozo yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Hajime mashite is nice to meet you, I believe. I don't know. The way I learn languages is I take it into context. So I don't like to do the whole, this means apple. I see the apple in my head and I learn it.
That's the better way to learn it. That's how you really learn to.
This is my third language, so that's how I learned my second. I was like, oh, wow, flashcards don't work that well for me. This is how I do it. Andy, I know AJ's talking a lot, but I know you have a lot to say.
This is my fault. I'm sorry.
No. I already did my cool thing. It's your turn, Stevie.
My cool thing was
it's actually my turn.
I broke dirt.
Yeah, that's right. AJ's turn.
As far as things that I've done, it's been really hard for me to be productive during this whole coronavirus / Black Lives Matter / 2020 whole situation going on. I actually have a few stories in the work, or it's a new quartet of novels that I'm working on. But I'm working on a bunch of stuff at once. But I guess the cool thing for me has to do with work, and that I'm sort of overhauling things with how we run the website, and we launched a new game show podcast that's really fun. So
what is that?
It's called LRM's Trivia Gauntlet of Infinite Doom. It is basically a game show where the questions are very much the equivalent of somebody flipping you off. They're really obnoxiously tough. Something along the lines of take the what was it? The odds of making it through the asteroid field and add it to, or multiply it times the number of actors who have played James Bond and divide that number by 5. And just a bunch of questions along those lines that you kind of have to think on the spot and remember things on the spot and just combine them in your head. So those kinds of questions.
Please don't invite me to that game. That game.
I was going to say, Andy, it seemed like you'd be perfect for this. You love game shows.
I do love game shows, but my brain is so mushy by the end of the day. After a day of writing, it's just it's why I watch TV, because it's just if I don't shut it down, it just kind of keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. Yeah. So it's all right,
yep,
turn it off.
I have to stop at 6, otherwise I'm done. If I don't stop at 6, I'm going to be up a little bit late, and I go to bed early, so that's probably why. I'm usually in bed by 9:30.
Yeah, I'm 5:30 to stop writing. 5:30 is dragging it on. My chapter ran late, or ran long, or whatever. But yeah, usually by 5, it's done and out.
With COVID going on, I get home around 8 usually on non-podcast nights, and then that's when I have to start writing, and that's when I try to do YouTube videos. But I have to, I want to spend time with the girlfriend. I was going to say I have to. I want to spend time with the girlfriend. So I don't want to say that I feel, because I'm a law of attraction guy. So if I say, I don't want this to happen anymore, it means I'm telling the universe, I don't want business anymore. No, business is great. I just wish I had a little bit more time to relax and write a good story. The story is great. I just want more time.
It's you just want to enjoy it. I mean, it's I noticed there's a point, there's diminishing returns point where it's I can write faster, but then it's not fun anymore. I want to be able to take my time with it a bit more so that I could actually enjoy the process and not burn myself out. So I think it's kind of maybe something like that, where you want to be able to just ease into it and enjoy the process and not just kind of feel like you're always crunching.
You're such a script writer.
Thank you.
Go script yourself. Hey, I see I see Captain America. I see Star Wars. Is that Daredevil? What is that?
Where? That's Batman.
Oh, okay. I couldn't read it. Wow. Detective. I saw that part and I thought it was Daredevil. Okay.
It was not.
If you haven't seen it yet, I haven't. Andy, I haven't shown them this yet. My good news for this week, I changed it over to my wall of amazement. Oh, fuck. Excuse me. This is my wall of comic books. This is all my famous ones. I have. That is the very first Shazam, and that is the very first Moon Knight, and that is Spider-Man, written by Tom McFarlane. What's his name? McFarlane. Yeah,
that's like, who's McFarlane? I've never heard that before.
McFarlane. So that is my wall of comic books.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah, we just use like closet hanger doors from Lowe's. It was a great idea that I saw on Pinterest, but that's my good news. I got to hang up my posters for once. Awesome. But let's get in today's topic. It's only been 30 minutes. Andy and I have obviously missed each other, even though he doesn't want to talk to me today. He wants to carry the weight of the world, which is today's topic. And I know so much about this topic, but I'm going to let Andy go ahead with it as usual.
Well, I think it's something that a lot of people sort of in positions of responsibility, as sort of husband and father in my circumstance and the primary breadwinner, days can start to get heavy. Like it's actually been a couple of pretty intense weeks for everybody, but I've been feeling it a lot more in the last couple of days, and it has nothing to do, or it has very little to do with sort of what's going on in the world. It's just things start to weigh on you, and then eventually you either have to sort of break free by, doing something irresponsible, which is kind of my go-to, or you kind of have this mental breakdown. But then AJ suggested this one, and it was interesting because it's like, how much of it is actual pressure, or how much of it is just stuff that you've taken on yourself until like you've added more and more and more until it's overwhelming. And that is 100% me. I just keep on taking on more and more and more until it's just too much. And it's so hard to find that balance. I think it's something that I've struggled with a lot in my writing, and now I'm finding that I'm struggling with it in a lot of different areas. Is that something that you guys also find yourselves doing?
AJ, I got things to say, man. So if you want to take it, go for it.
I'll take it first. I mean,
go for it.
Definitely felt that. I mean, even recently, it's kind of actually almost, I guess, serendipitous that God Mode is coming out, because I mean that's kind of what it's about, is this main character who takes his responsibilities on his shoulders, and that's kind of what he has to learn, is maybe don't be the martyr and don't try to do everything like that, because that's not the best way of doing it. And it's funny how I wrote that, and then I seem to have my own personal, even though I knew that was the arc, my own personal situation with my job as editor-in-chief of a website, my constant for years shortcoming of taking too much on. Whenever there was like an issue, instead of maybe teaching someone how to do it, I would just be like, I'll just take it. It takes 5 minutes. I'll take care of it now.
Yeah.
Do that constantly. Just fall into a pit. And that case, basically what it was. And it led to, after years of being editor-in-chief, I burned out hardcore. And it was not pretty. You mentioned that the second thing that you could do is have a mental breakdown. That's what I did. I had a mental breakdown, and it really made me realize, okay, I actually need to utilize the people who I have on my team and trust them. Learn to have trust. And if you don't have trust, then you're a bad leader. You should probably become a better one and learn, or find better ways to teach them so that you can trust them. So yeah, that's how I feel about the situation. And it's funny how I learned it after I wrote the freaking book.
I got to ask you, how old are you, AJ?
I am 56.
Yeah, I was thinking more 60, but yeah, you're like 56 for sure.
I'm 32.
32. Okay. Wow. I thought you were younger. I always say that on this podcast. I guess I just have a young filter on my eyes. But you seem a lot younger than that. I thought you were closer to me. I don't even care about you anymore. But I feel like ever since I met Andy, I grew up faster. It's all his fault. I've had to become more independent. Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate it. But definitely since becoming an author, I always, when you grow up with a family that's kind of, I don't know how to say it, Andy. I always go to Andy like, Andy, what English words am I trying to say? The sheltered. It wasn't very sheltered, but it was the least sheltered of a private school white kid could do. And when you're like, oh, you're going to college, and then after college, everything's going to be okay. After college, that's when the real life starts. Yeah. Especially for people like me. And it's like, oh, I thought getting a job would be easy. I thought getting a home would be easy.
That is the boomer myth, unfortunately, because that's
exactly. It doesn't work that way for everybody. So, and it got worse and worse
anymore. Yeah, it used to. It's not anymore.
I will say though that if you beat it and we all have to beat it at some level, but if you beat it at a decent level and you do get a job and you are working hard to better yourself and evolve, it's very satisfactory. But there are going to be days that just weigh yo ass down. And I was hit with that pretty seriously as soon as I became an author, because you have to realize it's a competitive market. You have to do your best. You have to. This is not just something you write a book and you put out. No, it's constant learning, and that's something that I really value that I took from Andy. It's constant learning. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But just becoming an author, that already made my life more difficult. And then running several other businesses, days weigh me down. And I always put that on my characters. I always do. And I'm super excited to talk about that today.
I guess the next step here would be, how do you, number one, stop doing that? And number two, sort of unburden the weight that you've already got, that you've been putting on your shoulders. What do you guys do to cope with things like this?
I have recently started trying to plan out my weeks in advance. And I don't necessarily mean plan them out individually. I mean, just get a basic idea of what you're trying to accomplish for the week. And then when you get to the day that you're on, nice.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean for it to be loud. Go ahead, AJ.
To once you get to that day, to sort of break it down, it's like, okay, what are the 1 or 2, 3 things that I'm going to be accomplishing for the day? And just make sure at the end of the day that is actually pushing you towards your goal. And if it's not, then it's basically a distraction. And if there are things that you still have to do in your task list, ask yourself if there's a way you can find a way to make it happen done easier, or if there's a way that you can push it on to somebody else, or
I was going to ask that. Yeah. Okay. So how this company that you work for, just to kind of give everyone a better idea, you're not just a freelance writer for you have a more significant part in that.
Yeah, I mean, technically I'm a contractor still, but I'm editor-in-chief. So like I run the content on the website.
Do they have like a YouTube that you voice over for like top 10 movies of 2020 or anything like that?
We have a YouTube. We've actually been neglecting it for a while, and we're going to try to start amping that up later on this year. That's like on the to-do list.
This has nothing to do with the podcast, but definitely do that. There's good money in YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, even there's good money, but also it's YouTube is having troubles as well.
It definitely is, especially, and this is a call out to you, YouTube. The LGBT community is totally underserved right now. Come on, it's been like 3 years. Stop it. Start working on it. Anyway, Andy, for me, you asked us, so I would have said meditation. I would have said that, but I will say I genuinely do not have time. Now you could say, "Oh, Stevie, you could find time. You could find time to meditate," and I can't argue with that. But that's time that I could be putting towards something that will allow me to spend more time with Lisa or my family or my dog. So right now, as I try to find a time to meditate, what I've discovered that helps me when I feel that the day has really weighed on me is something that's actually kind of counteractive. And that's listen to someone who's also had a very weighed down day. So I'll listen to Lisa. And I don't know why. It just helps me out so much. It may not help you, whoever's listening to this or watching this. But to me, listening to Lisa about her struggles of the day and just kind of working with what she has, it kind of relaxes me a little bit. And I know that's probably not what you're wanting to hear, but I think it has something to do with just love. And as stupid as that sounds, something, someone you really care about. And if you stop focusing about yourself and you focus on someone else and you realize, hey, this is the day God gave us, enjoy it. I'm Christian. I don't care if you are or not, but we all need to live in the moment. And that's what helps me. Andy, what about you?
Wow, I wish I was asking because I don't really know. So I know that at the end of the day, I step away from the computer and I'm done. I don't I don't
respect.
I
Respect.
don't think about what I didn't accomplish in the day because I know exactly how much I accomplished. You know, I put in the hours of work. My days are structured enough that I can walk away from it. But I don't know. It's been pretty tough. You know, with the whole COVID being locked inside, I'm not really an outdoorsy person, but the fact that I can't go outdoors just sort of adds to it.
You went on a hike, sir. Liar.
Well, couldn't.
You did a 5.2 kilometer hike.
Couldn't go
couldn't,
outdoors
okay.
until last week. My gym opened up last week. It was magic. So that was just one more thing. But you know, I think like video games have really helped me. But like specific video games, because there are video games that just irritate me or frustrate me, and it just makes things worse. So it's got to be like a specific game that I can just kind of play through, like a Call of Duty kind of game where there's no sort of question or difficulty to it. It's just basically keep shooting people until they're all dead, and you keep advancing. You know, like a game that's pretty straightforward. Games like that, they're pretty mindless, and that really helps me. Or watching TV or cooking is actually one of the things that I enjoy the most. Last night, my wife had to go pick up our son from work, so I made like a snazzy dinner just because I could. And that really helps me. But honestly, I don't think I really have anything that I do to sort of release to like take the pressure off myself. I feel like I just keep adding it on until it's like, okay, I finished this book. Now I've got to start the next one and write the next one. It's kind of like this self-imposed pressure. So I think, I don't know.
Decompression time is important though, like, because it basically find ways. I think the cooking helps because it's time for you either to listen to something or to think about other things mindlessly, and that's why I think the video games help as well. And meditate. It's basically meditation.
Totally agree.
So meditation, I have tried meditation in the past, and unfortunately, every time I sit down to meditate, I get ideas. And in my line of work, ideas are worth more than sort of the peace of mind, you know, than a clear mind. Like a great idea comes into your brain, you write that down, and then once you write it,
disagree with you, sir.
Really?
I have to disagree. Ideas are worthless. It's all about execution. You'll come back to the idea eventually. I think it's better long term to focus on your in the moment. Know that if it's a good idea, it'll come back, and just kind of push it aside. Like I recognize that it was there. Push it aside for a bit. It will come back. And yeah, like I think the idea is, it'll come back to it. Maybe it'll be annoying because you'll forget for a bit, but I think it'll come back. I mean, unless.
Andy, would your Asperger's have something to do to stop that? Like, because Andy has more difficulties than the average man with Asperger's, and it's
okay.
I didn't even know what that was until I met Andy. I just heard the word ass and burger, and then he's also from Japan. I was just like, oh, this is a guy I need to meet. But would you say, Andy, that has something to do with it? Because you've overcome a lot of difficulties with Asperger's.
So there's a certain amount of extreme focus, or like almost like blinders, when I'm in the middle of something. And this is something that's common to people with Asperger syndrome, is that when it's there, it's kind of what you're focusing on. So it's like extreme concentration. So often when I get too tired to write, it's not that I'm physically tired. It's that I know exactly how much it's going to drain me to write this chapter. And I know that at the end of this writing session, I'm going to be just absolutely, brain turned to mush, because it's going to, like, I'm going to invest this extreme concentration into writing the story. So it's like, I'm not actually tired in that sense. It's more like dreading the tiredness that's going to come.
Right.
And so like with ideas, it's not that I think ideas won't come back around. It's more like the idea that I've hit on, I like it. Okay. Like my brain settles on an idea, or it starts, pulling at the thread. And if I push it out, then the idea that I like, it could end up going somewhere else, and the story changes. And like if I find something that I like, then I want to follow it. So it's a little bit different than like I'm going to run out of ideas, as opposed to this is an idea that my brain sort of latched onto, and I like it. So let's see where this goes. Sort of that need to follow it through and find it out, as opposed to, oh my God, grasping at ideas because they're precious currency or whatever.
Right. I think it's funny. That reminds me of this is a tangent, but the idea where
we're not used to that.
No, but just like I think about this sometimes where it's like maybe I write like 2,000 words and I'm like, okay, cool. And then maybe X amount of months later, I'll read it and I'll go like, oh yeah, I remember when I wrote that. And I'm like, man, I thought that was pretty good. Imagine like how different would it have been if I had written it 30 minutes later or written it the next day?
Ooh,
just the fact like how much of the book would be written just because of like little things, little changes here or there. Like because of where I wrote it, where I was in that moment, and what I happened to think in that very instant, the book turns out slightly differently than it ever would have. It never would have been the same.
It's almost a little bit beautiful, though, I would say. I honestly, I can't even read book 2 of the Dark Assassin series because I was addicted to drugs at that point, unknowingly, which is, to me, baffling that no one talks about that, to be addicted to drugs and not know it. And coming off of those, and then halfway through Bizarre Blades to come off a drug that was supposed to help you come off the drug before, to come off those, and to be able to go back and read those scenes are incredibly sensitive, because writing is very, very intense. Like I think the same is with paintings, but I'm not a painter. I would kind of guess that being a writer, we can kind of put ourselves into people's bodies. But for me, some parts of my series, I'm a little scared to read. I'm not as brave as I want to be able to read those and be like, oh, wow, I remember that time. So AJ, I totally get what you're saying. But being completely clean right now, all my writing is, I can definitely go to each, rather than like, oh, I was coming off drugs at that point. Now I'm like, oh, I remember that day. I ran over something on the road that day, So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like a time capsule.
You're like, I didn't mean to bring up drugs, Steve.
No, that's fine. No.
Okay. Yeah, drugs are fine, AJ. Come on.
They're totally good.
Kids watch this show.
This is a no hold barred podcast.
AJ's perfect for the show, by the way. He's like, no, they're fine. Do them. Not everybody would make that joke, and AJ, I respect you.
I mean, I like to hope that people know I'm not serious.
I would honestly like to hope the same, but as someone who does customer service and what I read from people, I'm like, how do you go to Walmart and like even just Walmart and just to buy food for yourself with the process that your mental processes? It's baffling to me. And I'm like, oh, I understand why there's crime sometimes with some of the emails I get. But so it's almost the end of the podcast. AJ, you've been too perfect for the show.
Thank you.
Let's get into Andy, do you think we should get into the blurb or the?
I feel like we're not going to have enough time to
read it
to really enjoy it.
Okay. Right. AJ, we can always have you on again because you have God mode coming out.
I do.
Which is, I think God mode is an actual difficulty of God of War.
I mean, it's actual difficulty of a bunch of different games.
Yeah.
And in this instance, it's kind of more like a cheat code where you can basically be invincible in a way. I mean, it's not invincible in this. It kind of the whole point of this is that he tries to go into this game with a God mode of sorts enabled and comes across difficulties along the way. It's like, oh, God mode isn't as perfect as I had hoped it would be.
We actually had a lit RPG guy on, and my question was, because he had a Banff as his main character, just like he was totally overpowered. And my question was, how do you create problems for that character who's overpowered? Like, that's honestly my least favorite superhero is Superman.
Mine too.
If you're not the perfect writer, I mean, you're not just like freaking amazing at writing Superman, people are going to question it because it's Superman. But I like a good Superman story if they get it right. Like, they have a good writer. I personally like the Superman movie with Henry Cavill, however you say his name. I like that movie. Even apparently it was a flop. I was very surprised.
It wasn't a flop. It did well. People just like to complain.
I'm talking to AJ over here. He's like, it's not a flop. I could tell you the Rotten Tomatoes rating.
I mean, I don't know if I could. I think it may have been fresh, but either that or it was border. But it was. I think people
like complain.
They do, and that movie made money.
Justice League, my bro.
You want to jump down that? All right.
I tried to walk out of the theater, but my brother wouldn't let me. He's like, "No, we're gonna finish this out." And I was like,
I have a hot take that's unintentional hot take about that. I think Justice League is a more enjoyable movie to watch than Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I don't like Age of Ultron, so that would make sense to me.
I will say this. James Spader, I was into the movie just for that voice. Like that voice,
good voice.
I love that. But unfortunately with Justice League, I saw too many of the mistakes. Like they were too glaring. Whereas Age of Ultron, I felt like I walked away from it and it was like, okay, why didn't I enjoy this as much? But with BVS, or sorry, Justice League. Okay, I'm thinking Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman, I saw every single one of those mistakes that they
were
made.
Horrible. Oh my god!
How dare the two of you? How dare the two of you?
Dude, I'm telling you,
I'm a big apologizer for that movie. I love that movie.
That
well,
movie
the third act is a mess, but apart from that third act, I like a lot of what they had. There are a lot of problems with it that we could talk about.
Batman gets a shotgun.
Okay, Batman always has guns.
He gets a shotgun against that thing.
Okay,
Batman honestly is probably I love
Batman
about a lot of it, but there were far too many jump the shark moments. I will say though that moment when Wonder Woman shows up, shield, it's pretty comparable to Cap grabbing the hammer. Like that was a pretty badass moment.
Ironically, I disagree with that because apparently I like to be contrary.
I don't remember that part. Can you explain it to me and the audience? What's going on?
So in the end of middle, wait, how part of the
you should have watched it by now. You dumb.
Okay, basically, when you find out that Doomsday is happening, is coming, the enemy Doomsday is unleashed. Wonder Woman finds out from her plane, she's in a plane and about to leave, that these people need help, and then she comes and saves Batman and Superman, and she has that moment where she jumps down and it has her theme song playing.
Yeah.
Anyways, it has that playing. I actually don't like the third act because I think Captain America Civil War did it much better. It's where the third act is actually them clashing. And I think that's something they should have been braver about in Batman v Superman. And I can't get over that second trailer from Batman v Superman where it's like it revealed that third act moment where you have Doomsday show up. I'm like, we don't want that.
Exactly. No, you're right.
There are a lot of third act problems with that movie, but I think what a lot of the problems people have are, and I think Zack Snyder is very ambitious and he's very much a theme driven director. He's not a character driven director. So while he tries to get across these really big ideas, he's not really looking to get people as connected with the characters. So Batman v Superman is like almost wholly comprised of 30-second scenes, as opposed to, taking a couple of minutes to actually sit with the characters and get to know them. It's all about the idea. It's all about driving that theme forward and moving that plot forward. So I think it's harder for us to connect with them. But I very much respect the ambition he has for these stories and the things that he's trying to say with them, even if they're not perfect.
I feel like both of those movies kind of were like the last season of Game of Thrones in the sense that they had all of the right pieces. They had a lot of things that were very, very interesting and could have been very, very good had they been done correctly. And that the execution is where they fell short, in my opinion, obviously.
No, I could see that. I think, and anyone who listens to my podcast or reads my stuff always rolls their eyes at me, probably. I mean, they say that they're like, you like crappy movies. And I'm like, I like it when a director tries. I like it when I like seeing the Wachowskis do something crazy and off the wall and having it sort of crash and burn because it's interesting to watch. It's something that's different.
I will say that around the time Justice League came out, this was really when Andy was kind of just done teaching me what he knew, as much as you can learn from someone who's miles away. And I was probably like breaking 500,000 words.
Damn.
And, yeah. Finally I'm way over 1 million now, but watching Justice League, this was the first movie that I could put my finger on that this is wrong. Batman versus Superman, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. But I enjoyed Batman versus Superman, but Justice League, I didn't enjoy, which I think is okay. But as soon as I saw the family that was going to be the single family that was going to be killed by Doomsday, I was like, this is the save the cat moment. This is the moment that they want you to feel bad for them. And I'm like, what about everyone else?
Yeah.
But the Justice League to me is a bittersweet moment because I'm like, this is the point that I knew I was becoming a better writer because I could actually pinpoint areas like they just threw Cyborg in. They just threw the Flash in, my opinion. They just threw him in. And I wanted to know more about Cyborg. You know, I want to see him running down to catch that touch pass. What do they call it in football? I don't watch football.
That touch pass? That touch pass.
I'm from Texas. Please do not come and kill me. That touchdown, you know.
So I'm guessing y'all are wholly on board for the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League that's coming out.
What is that? What is that?
So basically, there's a lot of things that happen around the production of Justice League. So it was around that time Batman v Superman reviews were coming out, and it was not pretty. And they also were realizing this movie is probably not going to crack $1 billion. And they were like, oh, we better start fixing things. So during production, they already had them start changing things, rewriting the script, and basically shooting things and then shooting them again, basically doing reshoots while they're in production. These are from basically, these are rumors. These are none of this confirmed. This is, of course, they wouldn't confirm it. But anyways, and then around January of that following year, Zack Snyder's daughter committed suicide.
Oh my God.
So he stepped down. They brought Joss Whedon in to finish up his movie, finish up reshoots, and finish up everything. And they pretty much, from what I understand, probably kept about an hour's worth of the stuff that Zack Snyder did, and then basically redid everything else. And so from what we know, the Snyder cut will consist of, it'll basically be 3.5 to 4 hours long, and it will basically tell a whole different story. Steppenwolf would probably still be the villain, but it would lead to Darkseid at the end. And it's a more ambitious cut. And I'm assuming it's also going to incorporate the nightmare sequence in Batman v Superman with Batman, and just like tell a longer term story. I think that's another thing I appreciate about BVS is that it tried almost to be a TV show where it had things that it didn't pay off in that movie. And it was trusting the audience that we'll get there in like 3 movies. Please trust us. And of course the studio ruined it. So we weren't going to see it. And we still may not see it depending on if we get this.
Honestly, those things are probably my favorite parts of the movie, in the sense that why did Flash do that whole scene? Yeah. Why is Batman, what was all that about? Those parts, they were those moments that were dropped in, and, as part of a franchise, you expect them, which was totally fine. It's the rest of the movie around it that's the problem for me. Sure. But I think so it's going to basically be Zack Snyder's original vision for the movie, which is going to be consistent in the sense that it's one person. And I feel like that Joss Whedon is like the opposite type of a writer and director of Zack Snyder. He is all about the characters, in the sense that like one of the most famous Buffy episodes, there's not a single word in the entire thing. And it's just these human moments. And that's really, like Serenity or Firefly, there was so little action to it, and yet it was the character dynamics that made the show amazing. And everything that he's done so far has really, really been character driven. And so going for a director who's much more thematic, in the sense that he's trying to do these bigger things, when Joss Whedon is really all about the character journey, it was like 2 competing styles that maybe they didn't mesh as well as they should have. And so I think that's why we got the Justice League that we did, which I didn't mind it. I didn't love it, but it's was
a Saturday morning cartoon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really, really, Batman versus Superman was the only one that I would like. I walked out of the movie theater saying, I saw way too many mistakes for this to be a movie that I'll ever watch again. Justice League, I'm totally down for the new version, because maybe all the stuff that I liked about it will still be there, and there'll be new stuff that makes it all awesome, and all of that. It could be good or not.
Well, we'll see.
We're almost done with the show, and I will say, though, that I have this weird problem that Wonder Woman kind of fixes everything for me. The Wonder Woman movie is probably one of my favorite DC movies that I've seen. It takes a ton, it takes so much for me to want to kind of tear up at the end of the movie. Wonder Woman did that for me. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman, and I don't
Wonder Woman is hands down one of the best superhero movies of all time, in my opinion.
It's excellent. It's really good. Yeah.
They strike the right. I mean, aside from the whole Ares fight, that the ending was sort of a mess.
I could almost justify that because they were thematically clashing with each other.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
ideologically. That's it. Ideologically clashing.
Absolutely. And so it all made sense. But like after the whole movie, we just had all this consistent awesomeness where sort of one scene after another was so interesting, so intriguing. And then there was sort of the ending that, you know, like the whole Steve Trevor thing. There was just like it just fell a tiny bit flatter than I expected, especially after those moments where she stands up out of the trench, where you see the people, you know, the town getting bombed. It's just like all of this awesome. So like by comparison, these scenes they didn't hit. You know, had those scenes been sort of in one of the other movies, but honestly, Wonder Woman is probably my favorite, one of my favorite characterization of any of the superhero movies. Black Panther was another one that was amazing.
The ending of Black Panther was way better than the ending of Wonder Woman. The fight scene, it was what I mean. Just I will say though that who is that guy? Is he Michael Jordan's son? Is that right?
Michael B. Jordan.
No, he's unrelated.
Yeah, but he was very wealthy before he became
I didn't know
big.
That. I didn't know that.
From what I remember, and I like him a lot though. I love his body.
He's great.
By
He's nice.
He just kind of jumped into it and he's like, you know, I'm an athlete guy, but I'm also a good actor and I train hard. I like him a lot. So he was perfect for that.
Yeah, if you want to feel terrible about your body, watch Creed or Creed 2. And you just be like,
I refuse.
Why?
Creed,
why?
What is this gelatinous blob watching? So that is it for the Fantasy Fiends podcast. My final thoughts on Wonder Woman is, for me personally, it went from shooting guns and stuff to just the word isn't supernatural, but supernatural is what I'll say here. It's just like, you know, Wonder Woman kicking ass, and then also we got Electric Eye. You know, that was the only thing for me. But I haven't seen the movie in, what is it, 2-3 years, Andy? What has it been?
I think it was 2017. So 3.
Wait, oh my God, Andy, how long have we known each other, man? We did a podcast on this. We did a show on this. Yeah, we did a show on this episode.
Jeez. There we go, AJ. We'll get you back on after Wonder Woman, the 1984.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm down. And dissect it.
Yeah, I'm down. That sounds fun. If I decide to go out, if COVID isn't around anymore, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
I got you, man. So AJ, I know we didn't get to do your reading. I want to get to your reading. Please come back on the show. I'm begging you. You're like the son Andy and I never had.
Thank you so much.
When is God Mode 2 supposed to drop?
That will be eventually.
Okay.
I mean,
that makes sense.
It's currently in Derek's hands right now. We both hit a brick wall with COVID situation, so hopefully we'll be able to get on that soon. Hopefully in the next handful of months or so it'll be out, but we'll see.
Good. When you know the date, hit me up and we will actually do a reading of it.
Yeah.
That's something no regrets here. I had a great time, guys. I'm good.
Thanks, man. Well, your book will be in the description below. Remember, it's super easy. It's AJ Cerna. If you're listening, that's AJ space CERNA. They have a brand new book coming out called, it's the Mythrune. Am I saying that right? Mythrune online book 1, which is God Mode. And if for anything, just go check out the cover. Oh my God, it's freaking amazing. And if it's by Athon, you're going to get the audiobook. So just add it to your wish list so you can keep up with it. AJ, where can people find you?
You could find me on Twitter. My Twitter is not AJ. It's Jam the Writer, JAM the Writer. Right now, it's very political for reasons. So please forgive me for that. But usually I write a lot about movies and anime and stuff like that. So if you're into that normally, that's usually what I offer.
We didn't even get into the manga that I see behind you. Is that manga?
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Oh my God, dude. We got to talk some One Piece if you watch that.
Yes. That's all One Piece right there.
Dude, are you serious? I'm a huge One Piece guy. And then we also have that new anime Dokohoro. It's like lizard face man, lizard head.
Dohoro. I know how to pronounce it. I know what you're talking about.
I get confused saying it.
I think I read the manga.
I'm excited. The pre-order. Oh my God. The prequel. I don't know what I'm saying. It's not out yet, but it might be out by now. But that is it, guys. Remember, he is on Twitter at Jam the Writer, JAM the Writer. Check him out. This is the Fantasy Fiends podcast, guys. Thank you so much. We had an amazing turnout today. We're looking forward to next week where Andy will be nude. I'll be half nude. Right, Andy?
Stevie?
I'm praying that you'll be nude. I'm looking forward to it one day.
One day it's going to happen.
He's
going to keep planting it. He's incepting it into your brain. It'll come true.
And one day, all of our podcast show episodes on YouTube will not be monetized because of ya boy. All right, guys, that is the Fantasy Fiends podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We love you all so much. Please hit that like button if you want to really help us out. Share on Facebook. That's how we get the word out. We will see you next week for another awesome episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast /show. Good night.
All right, now we wave.
Wave to the camera, everybody. Damn it, AJ.